Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving deep into a gardening video that has been circulating around social media, claiming to show a miracle way to propagate roses. If you love roses, you know how expensive they can be, and the dream of cloning your favorite bush for free is tempting. This video claims you can take a cluster of dead, spent flowers, chop them up, soak them in water, and poof! Have a brand new rose bush in less than a month. It sounds like magic, right? But as real gardeners, we know that nature doesn't usually work like a magic trick. So grab your pruning shears and let's break this down step by step. We're going to look at the technique, analyze the biology, and determine if this is a legitimate hack you can try in your own garden, or if this is just another piece of clickbait designed to waste your time and soil. Let's get into the dirt. The video begins by showing us a rose bush that has finished its blooming cycle. We see clusters of spent flowers. The petals have fallen off, and the bases, known as rose hips or receptacles, are starting to swell. The creator takes a pair of shears and snips off an entire cluster of these spent blooms. Next, they take this cluster and start dissecting it. They carefully cut away every single leaf and every bit of the stem, isolating just the individual flower heads. They are left with nothing but the green, swollen base of the flower where the seeds would theoretically be. This is a crucial detail to note. There is no stem tissue left, no nodes, no bark, just the floral receptacle. Then comes the secret sauce. The creator places these isolated flower heads into a small plastic container filled with water. They then pour in a blue liquid from a generic white bottle. In the gardening world, blue liquids are often rooting hormones, fungicides, or sometimes just copper sulfate. They let these flower heads soak in this blue bath for 30 minutes. After the soak, the planting process begins. They take a small cup filled with dark, moist potting soil. They place the soaked flower heads directly onto the soil surface and then gently cover them with a thin layer of dirt. They water it in thoroughly, essentially burying these dead flower parts. The video then cuts to a time-lapse, or a jump cut labeled after 25 days. Before showing the result, we get a random montage of cacti and succulents, likely just filler content to pad the video length. Then, we see the cup again. Shockingly, tiny green shoots are poking out of the soil. The creator then gently digs one out, and here's where things get suspicious. They pull out the original flower head, and attached to it are white, healthy-looking roots and a tiny green rose shoot growing out of the top. They show several of these, lining them up in their hand. The roots are white and fibrous, and the shoots have true rose leaves. They even rinse them off with a hose to show the clean roots. Finally, they replant these flower head plants into a larger pot and water them. Now, let's put on our gardener hats and use some critical thinking. Is this real? Can you really grow a rose plant from just the flower head? The short answer is no. This is almost certainly fake. Here's the biology behind why this doesn't work. Roses, like most woody perennials, propagate vegetatively through stem cuttings. To grow a clone of the mother plant, you need a piece of stem that contains a node. A node is the bump on the stem where leaves or buds grow. That node contains meristematic tissue, the undifferentiated cells that can turn into roots or shoots. In this video, the creator explicitly cuts off all the stem and leaves. They are left with only the receptacle, the hip. The receptacle is floral tissue. Once a flower has been pollinated and the petals drop, that tissue is biologically programmed to mature into a fruit, the hip, to protect the seeds or to rot. It does not contain the meristematic tissue required to generate a whole new vegetative plant. You cannot grow a stem and roots from a flower base alone. It's like trying to grow a new chicken from an eggshell. The shell protects the life, but it isn't the life itself. So, what are we looking at in the video? There are two possibilities. Possibility 1. It's actually growing from seeds. Inside those rose hips are seeds. It is possible to grow a rose from seed. However, rose seeds are notoriously difficult. They have a hard outer coat and require stratification, a period of cold, damp conditions, usually 3 to 4 months in a fridge, to break their dormancy. You cannot just plant a fresh hip in warm soil and expect it to sprout in 25 days. That timeline is biologically impossible for rose seeds without prior cold treatment. Furthermore, if it were a seedling, the roots would be growing from the seed inside the hip, pushing the shoot up. In the video, you can clearly see white roots emerging from the exterior of the green hip itself. That is not a seedling. That looks like a rooted cutting. Possibility 2. The video is staged. This is a common trope in fake gardening videos. The creator likely took small stem cuttings with nodes, rooted them separately, perhaps using the blue liquid, and then attached the spent flower heads to the bottom of the cuttings to make it look like the hip grew the roots. Or, simpler yet, they just swapped the cup. They planted the hips, but when they dug them up 25 days later, they pulled out pre-rooted cuttings that they had prepared weeks ago. The blue liquid is likely just dye to make it look scientific. Notice how the shoots look perfectly uniform and healthy, and notice how the roots are thick and white. Those look like roots from a stem cutting, not the delicate radicle of a seed or the adventitious roots of a flower part. Another massive red flag is the random footage of cacti and succulents inserted right before the reveal. Why would a video about rose propagation suddenly show a collection of cacti? This is a classic sign of a content farm video where they stitch together random gardening clips to increase watch time or confuse the algorithm. It suggests the creator doesn't actually have a coherent process to show you. So, should you try this? No. If you try this at home, you will end up with a cup of rotting flower heads and potentially some fungus gnats. You will not get rose bushes. If you want to propagate roses, stick to the methods that actually work. First, stem cuttings. Take a 6-inch cutting from a healthy stem. Make sure it has at least 3 nodes. Remove the lower leaves, dip the bottom in rooting hormone, the real stuff, not blue mystery water, and plant it in perlite or potting mix. Keep it humid. This takes about 4 to 8 weeks. Second, layering. Bend a low branch of your rosebush down, scrape the bark, bury that section in the soil while it's still attached to the mother plant. Once it roots, you can cut it free. This has a very high success rate. If you really want to grow roses from the hips, shown in this video, you have to do it the hard way. You need to cut the hip open, extract the seeds, clean off the pulp, and then stratify them. This means putting the seeds in a damp paper towel inside a plastic bag and leaving them in the refrigerator for at least 10 to 12 weeks. Only after that cold period can you plant them, and even then, germination rates are low, and the resulting plants will not be identical to the parent plant because they are grown from seed, not clones. This video is a classic example of gardening porn. It looks satisfying and magical, but it ignores the biological reality of how plants grow. It's designed to get views, not to teach you how to garden. The idea that you can bypass months of stratification and weeks of rooting just by soaking a dead flower in blue water is scientifically absurd. Don't let it fool you. Keep your gardening experiments grounded in science, and you'll have much better success. Thanks for watching, and happy gardening!